Hi, I'm Max Rodriguez, and this is Writers on Writing. Tell me about your writing style, your writing habits. I remember speaking with Walter Mosley, and he says, Max, I write 3 hours every day. I start at 6 in the morning, I finish at 9, I do my writing, the rest of the day is mine.
Yeah.
What's your writing habit?
Yeah, Walter is a machine.
He is a machine.
In some ways.
A machine.
I had to learn how to write this book, and I had an amazing editor who put in front of me the audience that I wanted to write for. And it's my mom. My mom dropped out of high school in the 9th grade, and so I wanted her to be able to read the book from cover to cover without kind of stumbling over these unnecessary jargon and that stuff, right? And so part of the process began with getting up, and I'm a morning writer as well, kind of starting where I ended. Hemingway taught me you never finish your writing day unless you know where you're going to start the next day. And so typically I read over what I've written the day before, and I was writing, the measure of judgment was to write clearly. Can mama understand this formulation? So I rewrote racial habits like 4 or 5 times, value gap 4 or 5 times, and my editor kept saying, what are you trying to say? Then I would say it. He said, well, let's write that. And so I had to engage in that kind of stern discipline of Xing out all of those unnecessary words. And so the editing process in the very beginning of the writing would get the juices flowing, and then I would write. And I typically write until noon, and then I shut everything down. Okay. And from there, off to bureaucratic meetings and teaching classes and doing that kind of stuff.
Life again.
Life again, yeah.
And so what advice would you give to an aspiring writer?
That's a great question. Read. The best writers I know are extraordinary readers. And, I use the jazz musicians as my model, right? So if you listen to the early compositions of Wynton, you just hear Duke, right? You listen to Wynton's early horn, you just hear Miles, right? You can so there's a way in which you apprentice yourself, right? You find your favorite writers and you read them over and over again and you learn from them. You pick up, I learned how to use the semicolon from reading one of my favorite political philosophers, right? Or I learned how to write that sentence with all that stuff in between from reading Henry James and reading James Baldwin's reading of Henry James, or or the way in which I remember one time I was on a flight to Johannesburg, and I was reading Sound and Fury by Faulkner, and there was a sentence and I just didn't know how he could write it, right? And I just started pacing up and down the plane. So part of the way in which you find your voice as a writer is commit yourself to the craft of writing, which involves committing yourself to the craft of reading.
And what of those who say, I just want to tell my story? Craft. I want to tell my story. I have a story, I want to tell it.
See, that's I was telling my nephew who's a junior, he's a freshman in high school. He can sing and he can write, and I was listening to his lyrics, and the lyrics were so profound. It suggested a level of maturity that went beyond his years. And I said to him, you have to work on the craft of your voice so that you can capture your emotions. He said, what do you mean? I said, you can sing, but listen at this lyric. And I read it off to him. Now, how are you going to make that sound? Right? So you can tell your story, and your story may actually give a voice to the complexity of the human journey in a very profound way, but if you don't have the skill set to render it, then you're not doing justice to your story. So it's always a combination of mastery of craft with, right, the depth of experience, right? So you want to find the tools to give voice to the depth of experience, right? And whenever you hear that sound, when you hear that note, when you read that sentence, it hits you, right? It hits you in that place because author more than likely wrote it 20 times.
And truly, writing is art, writing is music.
Rewritten. Yeah, exactly.
Eddie Glaude, Democracy in Black, How Race Still Enslaves the American Soul. Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you so much, Doc. Appreciate you. Appreciate you.
We hope you enjoyed Writers on Writing. Please visit us on our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, and on QBR.com.